In this video, what I'm going to show you is how to draw histograms. In another video, I will show you how to find the averages from histograms, such as the median. But in this one, if you haven't done histograms before and you just need to learn how to do it, or you need a revision on it, then you're in the right place. Okay, so I'm going to go through this question here, and then I'm going to do another similar one where you can practice it. And then we're also going to look at this type of question, which is quite common, where you have to fill in the missing parts of the histogram. So let's begin. So let's start off with the formula that you need to know for histograms, which is frequency density is equal to the frequency divided by the class width. Okay, so from now on, I'm going to refer to the frequency as F and the class width as CW. Okay, and frequency density, I'm going to call that FD. Okay, so let's have a look at this first question. It says the table shows information about the distances of 570 students who traveled to a university open day. And we've been given the various frequencies, and we've been asked to draw the information into this histogram. So let's begin by extending our table by adding 2 extra columns. Now, you don't have to add 2 extra columns, but you certainly do need to add a frequency density column. Okay, so let's quickly do that. Okay, so let's call this column here CW, so the class width. Now, where do we get the values for here from? We get the values from these class widths. Okay, so if you can see here, the first one, we've got a gap of 20. So the class width is going to be 20. The next one, from 20 to 50, the class width is going to be 30. And the next one after that, 50 to 80, that's a class width of 30 again. The next one is 80 to 150, so a class width of 70. And the final one has a class width of 50. Okay, so that's that. Now in here, we're going to call this frequency density. Now, how do we calculate the values that go in here? Well, if we look at the formula, okay, frequency density is equal to the frequency divided by the class width. Okay, so in this first one here, in this first row, what is our frequency? Our frequency is 120, and our class width is 20. So what we're going to put in here is 120 divided by 20. So 120 divided by 20, that gives you 6. So the frequency density for the first one is 6. And we'll do it for the next one. So the frequency divided by the class width. So the frequency is 90. The class width is 30. So that's going to be 90 divided by 30, which is 3. Okay, so the frequency density is 3. The one after that is 120 divided by 30. So that's going to be 4. Next, we've got 140 divided by 70, and that's going to be 2. Finally, we've got 100 divided by 50, which is 2 as well. So we now have all of our frequency densities. All we have to do now is plot this in here. Now, where do we begin first? Well, what we want to do is fill in and label this axis right there. Okay, and how do you decide how to fill it in? This is something that students often get very confused about. You have to look at your frequency density, okay, and you have to see what it goes up to. So it goes up to 6, which is the highest number, and it starts on 2. So somehow we've got to divide this up in that order. Now, I've got whole numbers, so what I can say is, look, let that be 1, let this be 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And we can even go up to a 7th one if we have to, but there is no need. Okay, and that does it nicely. You will notice that the class width is already given to you, but if you're answering questions in class, then that's something that you need to work out by looking at this. Once again, you're going from 0 and you need to go up to 20. So you have to find a way to divide the x-axis in that way. Now, you don't have to divide it by the class width itself, by the way. Okay, as long as you go from 0 to 200, let's say you go up in 20s or something. In this case, you can see that it's gone every 2 squares is 50. Okay, you can see it's already done for you. Right, so let's begin. Our first one is going to look like this. We have a frequency density of 6. We know the class width is going from 0 to 20. So from 0, we need to find where 20 is. Now, if you zoom in here a little bit and just have a look at this in closer detail, it goes from 0 to 50 here, which means halfway point is 25. That means that if you now divide 0 to 25 here, each of these squares, what does that represent? Well, that's going to represent 5. Okay, so each little square is representing 5. So now, if we are going to go from 0 to 20, okay, how many of these boxes do we need? We need 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of these boxes, because 4 times 5 is 20. So we'll go up here like that, and we need to go to 6. So we'll go up here to 6 like that, and we'll draw a graph. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're a ruler. Make sure you use a ruler for this. There you go. That's my first histogram bar. Next, I have a frequency density of 3, and my class width is going from 20 to 50. So where I left off, 20 all the way to 50. And I have to go up to 3. So it's going to look like that. So let's put that in. Again, with a ruler. And we can just add it to the side of the other one, because it's already drawn for us. That's done. Next, what do we have? We have a frequency density of 4 and a class width that goes from 50 to 80. So 50, once again, we need to find where 80 is, somewhere here. So let's zoom in here again. So what did we say earlier? Each of these small squares is worth 5. So let's go up in every 2 squares. So 60, 70, 80. That's where 80 is, right there. Okay, so let's just mark that. I'm going to go up. What's the frequency density? The frequency density was 4, so we're going to go up to 4. And there we are. Next, we have a frequency density of 2, and we're going from 80 to 150. So where we left off, all the way to 150. And we go up to 2. So it's going to look like that. So that should be done again using a ruler. There you have it. Finally, 2 again for frequency density, and it goes from 150 all the way to 200. So right there, and it will be the same height. And there we have it. We have completed our histogram. Let's move on to the next question. So if you have a look at this next question, you can see it's very similar to the last one. You've been given a table and you've been asked to draw a histogram. Why don't you give this one a try? Pause the video here, and then you can compare your answers, where I'll go through it a little bit more faster than the previous one. And then we'll look at the final one, which is a worded problem. A bit more thought needs to go into it. Okay. All right. So once again, what we're going to do here is we're going to extend our table. Okay, so let's add in class width right there. So what's the class width on this one? The class width is 25. So the difference between 0 to 25 is 25. So class width here is going to be 25. Next, what's the class width here? You can see 25 to 45 is 20. So the class width will be 20. The class width here is going to be 15. So 15. The next one is also going to be 15. The one after that is 10. 85 to 95 is also 10. So in here, we're going to write down our frequency density. So for the first one, it's going to be the frequency, which is 20, divided by the class width, which is 25. So put that into your calculator. That gives us 0.8. The one after that is going to be 35 divided by 20, and that gives us 1.75. Then we have 45 divided by 15, and that gives us 3. Then we have 87 divided by 15, and that gives us 5.8. And then we have 10 divided by 10, which is of course 1. And then we have 8 divided by 10, which is 0.8. Now, what do you notice here? This time, the frequency densities are not so friendly, all right? So once again, we need to find a way where we can divide this axis up, which is the frequency density axis. Now, let's look at our numbers. It goes all the way up to 5.8. So we need to be able to accommodate a number like 5.8. And it starts off with really small numbers like 0.8. So we won't be able to do like 1, 2, 3, 4 so easily. We have to put a bit more thought into this. All right, so let's have a look at this, and we also want to make sure that we can add things like the decimal values, right? So just looking at this, we need to go up to at least 6, because remember this is 5.8, so at least 6 is going to cover us. So let's see if we can do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We can, and that leaves us plenty of room in here to deal with the decimal places. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, that would cover us nicely. Right, so just like before, we need to represent 0.8 for the first one on our frequency density. We need to figure out how we're going to get there, and we know that it goes from 0 to 25. So from 0 to 25, which is halfway here. Okay, so let's go mark the halfway point first of all, so you can actually see it. So 20 halfway is right there. Okay, so we just do that. And then we also need to look at the 0.8 on our frequency density. So right here, where would 0.8 be? Well, this is 0.5. So each one of these is 0.1. So 0.8 is right there. Okay, so it's going to look like this. All right, so let's go ahead and put that in. There we go. So that's the first one done. So next we have 1.75. So we need to find where 1.75 is up along here. And we need to go from 25 to 45. So 25 is where we left off. 40 is here and 45 is going to be halfway. So let's go ahead and mark the halfway first. So that's 45 right there. And we need to go up to 1.75, which is what the frequency density was. Right, so this is 1.5, 1.67, and it's going to be halfway right there. Okay, so you've got to be really careful here and do this. So let's go up from here to that halfway point. So that's 1.5, 6, 7, and 1.75 right there. So that's about halfway. And go and meet where we left the mark over there. And that looks about right. Okay, there you go. That should be good. The examiner will be quite lenient as long as you've shown this is halfway. Okay, it'd be fine. Okay, so if you go a little bit, above the halfway point or below the halfway point, it's okay. As long as the examiner can see that you made an effort to go halfway. Right, now, what do we have? We've got 3, and it goes from 45 to 60. So 45 to 60, and it goes up to 3. So this is just straightforward like that. Okay, so 45 to 60, up to 3, go across, and come down. Okay, now what do we have? We've got 5.8 next. Okay, so this is going from 60 to 75. So 60 to 75, 5.8. So let's go ahead and find where 75 is first, right there. And we're going to go up and find 5.8, right? So let's 5.5, 6, 7, 8, right there. Okay, so it's going to be the third one from 5.5, 6, 7, 8, right there. Okay, so we're going to go up 5.5, 6, 7, 8, right there. Go across, not that far. We're going to go across, looking down where our halfway mark is below, and with a ruler, go all the way down. So that's that done. We've got 1 next for the frequency density, and it's going from 75 to 85. So 75 to 85, halfway, up to 1. So let's go ahead and see where that 85 is. 85 is right there, and it's going up to 1. So 1 is just across there and down. So as you can see, I've gone up to 1 right there. Okay. And lastly, we have 0.8 and 0.8 frequency density going from 85 to 95. Okay, so 95 is right. So 95 is right there. Okay, and we've got 0.8. So again, that's going to be 90. That's 0.5, 6, 0.7, 0.8 right there, and we have completed our histogram. Let's have a look at this final question where you need to put a little bit more thought into the histogram. As you can see, there are no tables. You haven't been asked to populate the frequency density or anything like that. Okay, so let's have a read. So this histogram gives information about the heights in meters of the trees in a park. 20% of the trees have a height between 10 meters and 12.5 meters. None of the trees in the park have a height greater than 25 meters. Complete the histogram. So if you notice here, some of this is missing right there. So this is 10 to 12.5. That's 10 to 12.5. So the first thing you want to do is check, look, 10 to 15, this is 10 to 15, and halfway is 12.5. So you know your bar is going to go somewhere like that. Okay. So what we can do is let's write down the class width from here. What's the class width from 10 to 12.5? You just do 12.5, take away 10, so it's 2.5. So your class width is 2.5. Now, what we are told is that 20% of the trees have a height between that. So this is equal to 20% if you like, okay? But we're going to leave that for now. What we are going to do is concentrate on the rest of the bars, okay? Let's figure out what all of these are worth. And this brings me to manipulation of that formula that I showed you earlier, which was frequency density is equal to frequency divided by the class width. So what we're looking for, I want to know what this bar is equal to. I want to know its frequency. I want to know what this bar is equal to, what this bar is equal to. Okay, I want to know its frequency. So I'm going to rearrange this formula so that frequency is the subject. And how am I going to do this? I'm going to have to get rid of the CW, the class width from the bottom, by multiplying over on this side. So that looks like this. Frequency is going to be equal to the frequency density times by the class width. So if I know the frequency density of something and then I times it by the class width, I can have its frequency. And that's how I'll find all of these values. So as you can see, this is already populated for me, so I can know the frequency density of each one. So let's have a look at this one. The first bar, I'm going to work this out. So this is 1, this is 2. You can see that, it's quite obvious. This is 0.5. So each of these little squares means 0.1. So what is this? That's going to be 1.1, 1.2. So that's going to be 1.2. So for the first one, I'm just going to put this down here. The frequency density is 1.2. And what is the class width? The class width is going from 0 to here. And what is here? You can see that it's halfway between 0 and 5. So it's 2.5. So the class width is 2.5. So it's going to be times by 2.5. So all I've done here is frequency density times by the class width. Frequency density is 1.2, which I got from here. And the class width is 2.5, which I got from here. Okay, so put that into your calculator and get me the answer. 1.2 times by 2.5. And that gives us 3. So this is equal to 3. And we can do that for the rest of them. So the frequency density here is 2, and the class width is also 2.5, just like before. So we're going to do 2 times 2.5, and that gives us 5. So that's going to be 5 right there. Next, we have a frequency density, so that's 2.5, so that's 2.678. So a frequency density of 2.8 times by the class width, which is 5 this time. So 2.8 times by 5, and that gives us 14. So this bar here is equal to 14. This bar here is equal to 5. This bar here is equal to 3. Finally, let's work this out. So what's the frequency density? Well, we know that this is 0.5, 0.678. So 0.8 times by the class width, which is going from 12.5 here all the way to 25. And that is 12.5. So 0.8 times by 12.5, and that equals 10. So that's equal to 10 right there. Now, why have I done this? Well, if I add up all of these, so that's 3 plus 5 plus 14 plus the 10, and that equals 32. Remember, the question said that 20% of the trees are between 10 meters and 12.5 meters, which is here. So that means the rest of it right here is the 80%, which is equal to 32. So let's put that down here now. So 32 trees is equal to 80%. What am I trying to find? I'm trying to find what is 20%. So how do I find what 20% is equal to? Well, I can go down to, from 80%, I can divide this by 4, and likewise, I'll divide the 32 by 4 as well. So if I do 32 divided by 4, I can have how many trees are between 10 meters and 12.5 meters. And 32 divided by 4 is 8. So 8 trees are between 10 to 12.5 meters. Now, what is this 8? Well, the 8 is my frequency. What is my CW? The CW I worked out earlier is 2.5. So, to work out the frequency density, the height that I need for this, I just need to use the original formula, which is this right there. So, frequency density is going to be equal to frequency divided by the class width. And that gives me 3.2. So my bar has to have a frequency density of 3.2. So let's put that in. Let's find where 3.2 is. That's 3. So 3.1, 3.2 right there. So it's going to be 3.2 right there. And we go down. And there you have your completed bar. You've completed your histogram. Hope you enjoyed this lesson. Please stay tuned for another video on this where I will be showing you how to find the median from histograms.